I never expected the day my mother's will was read to feel like a performance. Everything about the office Mason and Company reeked of legacy. Tall glass windows, books no one read, a cold marble floor you didn't want your shoes to scuff. And there I was, a black sweater in a sea of grey suits, trying not to sweat through the silence. Victoria, my older sister, looked like she belonged there. She always did. She sat at the head of the table, legs crossed, blazer crisp, sipping a latte like it was just another Monday morning. She didn't even glance at me when I walked in. "Mr. Ethan Walker," said Miss Riley Bennett, the estate attorney, her voice clipped and practiced. "Are you ready to proceed?" As ready as someone can be to hear the final verdict of their family's love. I nodded. The will was read out like scripture. Victoria got everything. The penthouse on Fifth, the company, Walker, Global. The shares, the estates, the assets that stretched across continents. Then came my name, to my son Ethan. Miss Bennett hesitated, her eyes flicking to me with the kind of pity I hated most. I leave the painting titled Evening Echoes, currently displayed in the East Lounge. That was it. I blinked. A painting? Victoria didn't even bother hiding her smirk. She leaned over and whispered, "It'll look great in your studio," adds character. I stood. I don't remember what I said, if anything. Just that my heart felt like it had turned to wax, slowly melting from the heat of humiliation. I drove across the city in silence, to what was now Victoria's penthouse. Carlos, the long-time housekeeper, no, my family's shadow met me at the door. His eyes were red. "She shouldn't have done this to you," he said as he helped me take the painting down. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. He wrapped it carefully, like it was fragile, like it mattered. "Your mother used to stare at this thing for hours near the end," he murmured. Sometimes she whispered about shapes. Numbers, we thought. Well, you know how she was near the end. But I did know. Because the moment I laid eyes on the painting again, deep reds and fractured blues swirling through a shadowed forest, I felt something pull, like it had been waiting for me. Back in my apartment, I hung it across from the window, sat on the floor with a glass of wine, just me, and the art no one wanted. The only thing I got from the woman who made me. And still, I couldn't stop staring. The next morning, I skipped coffee. I didn't sleep, didn't move much. Just sat there most of the night, facing the painting like it owed me answers. Evening echoes, they called it. Forest at twilight, trees bent like they were whispering. But what got me wasn't the scenery, it was the strange geometry woven into the shadows. Triangles tucked inside leaves, circles floating near the bark. Sharp, deliberate, wrong. I wasn't imagining it. I'd studied art history long enough to recognize when something didn't belong. I'd restored paintings ruined by time, sun, and careless fingers. I'd trained my eyes to notice detail too much, sometimes. But this wasn't decay. This was intentional. By 10 a.m., I was halfway through my third search of the artist's name. Nothing. No gallery records, no auction history, just a long closed listing from some pop-up space in Brooklyn. It was like the painting never existed, like it wasn't meant to be found. Then came the text. "Victoria, don't be dramatic. Come work for the company. We could use a mailroom guy who appreciates modern art." I didn't reply, didn't need to. She knew she'd won. That was the point. But that night, something changed. I poured another glass of wine, stood up, and looked closer. Really looked. The shapes weren't just shapes. They were patterns structured, rhythmic. A kind of symmetry that reminded me of something buried deep in old textbooks, steganography. Hidden messages in art. I could feel the shift in my chest. Like my mother was whispering in a language only I could hear. That's when the knock came. 3 sharp raps. Then again, louder. Through the peephole I saw her, Victoria. Hair wild, eyes sharp, heels clicking across the hallway like gunfire. "Ethan," she hissed. "Open the door." I froze. Her voice, always calm, always perfect, now cracked at the edges. She sounded afraid. There were instructions from Mum. "About the painting," she said. My breath caught. "Instructions?" I stayed silent. She kept talking. "Just give it to me. I'll wire you $5 million tonight. No questions." She was lying. She always lied. But the number still made my stomach twist. This wasn't about sentiment. It was about value. Real value. And suddenly I knew. This painting, it wasn't the insult I thought it was. It was bait. It was a key. And I wasn't about to hand it over. I didn't sleep again. After Victoria left her offer still hanging in the air like a trap I didn't take, I sat with the painting and stared until my eyes burned. The thing wasn't just art. I knew that now. Every brushstroke had intention, every shape a secret folded into twilight. She said there were instructions from Mum. Whatever relationship they had, it wasn't like ours. I wasn't the prodigy, the future CEO, the empire's rightful heir. I was the soft one, the art kid, the black sheep with the wrong kind of degree and the wrong kind of ambition. But I knew how Mum thought. And if she really left something behind, she didn't leave it with Victoria. She left it with me. At around 2 a.m., I finally caught it, the pattern I'd been missing. The shapes weren't random. They were layered. Some colours were slightly cooler than others, cooler than they should be for a painting that lived in a penthouse lit by warm halogens. I adjusted the hue and contrast on my laptop, ran the high-res photos through a restoration tool I built in college and forgot about. The numbers popped, subtle, obscured, hidden in tree branches, stone textures woven into negative space. But they were there, 3 sets of numbers that looked eerily like GPS coordinates. I froze. This was no longer about legacy. This was a map. And then I remembered what Carlos said. She used to mutter about shapes, numbers, patterns. I thought maybe it was grief or illness. But now it felt like she had been leaving breadcrumbs for someone willing to listen, someone like me. I flipped the canvas over. The frame was old, but professionally mounted. Except for one tiny inconsistency on the lower right edge, a small gap between the wood and canvas that shouldn't have been there. My hands trembled as I ran a thin blade under it, just enough to loosen the pressure. Something slipped free. A folded slip of parchment, cream-coloured, thick and textured, inked in the unmistakable handwriting of Dr. Eleanor Walker, my mother. To my son Ethan, if you're reading this, you've seen what I always knew you would. You see the truth others miss. And now you're ready. I had to sit down. My hands shook as I read line after line, my heart thudding harder with every word. She wasn't just a co-founder of Walker Global. She was the mind behind it, the brilliance, the innovation. The reason the company soared wasn't Victoria or our father before he vanished into the background. It was her, and they buried her. The painting, she wrote, was more than a map. It held access codes, layers of data encrypted in color values markers for security systems, for safes, for what she called the Polaris Vault. She had built an entire lab in secret. Her own space, separate from the marble towers and corporate lies. A place where she could create not for shareholders, but for the sake of progress. And, more importantly, a place she could protect from her own family. They feared you, Ethan, your father, your sister. They feared what you'd become if you ever saw what they tried to hide. But now it's your turn, the world will know. I barely noticed the tears hitting the page. I had grown up thinking I was the afterthought, the one left out. But she had seen me all along. The letter ended with instructions. 3 coordinates, 3 entry points. Start with the one in Connecticut, the old field. You'll find the vault beneath what looks like an abandoned farmhouse. You'll need the first sequence from the painting to get in. I didn't hesitate. By sunrise, I had packed the painting carefully wrapped in blankets, along with my laptop, the letter, and 3 changes of clothes. My apartment looked hollow without the painting on the wall, but I didn't look back. I stepped outside, and that's when I saw it. A black SUV, engine running, parked across the street. Victoria hadn't given up. I got in my car and drove. I didn't take highways. I zigzagged through neighborhoods and side roads, my eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every 2 seconds. The SUV followed for nearly an hour. I only lost it after a sharp detour past an old railroad crossing and a turn onto a forgotten back road near the state line. 3 hours later, I was deep in the Connecticut countryside. The GPS blinked a red pin on an overgrown patch of land, where a rotting farmhouse leaned slightly under the weight of years. I parked beneath some trees and stared at the scene. It looked dead, but when I pulled out the printed photo of the painting, it clicked. The same clusters of trees, the crooked angle of the shed, the twisted iron gate. Everything matched the art exactly like the painting had been based on this location. The entrance, she said, was beneath the storm cellar. I walked toward it slowly. My hands were sweating. I pulled out the first number sequence and found a small metallic panel hidden behind a broken fence post near the cellar. I punched in the code. The doors hissed open. A set of metal stairs spiraled downward, illuminated by cold white lights that flicked on as I stepped inside. The air was sharp, clean, industrial. I followed the humming sound down what felt like 5 stories until I reached a second panel, this one needing the second sequence from the canvas. I keyed it in. The door slid open. I stepped into a world that didn't belong underground. White floors, sleek glass panels, shelves of prototype tech, walls lined with patent designs, screens flickering with data I didn't understand. It was like walking into the mind of a genius who'd had nowhere left to build but underground. And on one side of the room, framed in steel and bulletproof glass, hung a wall of innovation. Every invention credited to Walker Global had a version here. Earlier, better. With my mother's signature etched quietly in the corner, I whispered, "Oh my God, this was it, the truth." But I wasn't alone. A familiar voice sliced through the silence. "Impressive, isn't it?" I turned and froze. Victoria stood just inside the doorway, flanked by 2 suited men and holding a sleek digital pad. Her hair was perfect again. Her voice, colder than the air. "You didn't think I'd let you have this to yourself, did you?" I backed up toward the terminal. "You've been following me." She tilted her head. "Not just me." And then another voice, male, smooth, unmistakable. "You were always so predictable, Ethan." I felt my lungs freeze. My father stepped into view, not a memory. Not a ghost. Alive. I couldn't move. My father, the man whose name was carved into every product Walker Global ever touched, stepped forward like he'd never been gone. Not dead, not buried, not even regretful. He looked the same, only sharper. Trimmed silver hair, expensive coat, calm expression. "You're supposed to be..." I started, then stopped. "Dead?" he said with a faint smile. "Sometimes, Ethan, you find more in the shadows than in the light. Your mother never understood that." I stepped back. He wasn't just alive, he was here, in her lab, and he brought Victoria with him. "What is this?" I asked, voice shaking. "You faked your death? To what? Flush me out?" Victoria crossed her arms and let out a soft sigh, like I was the child again, asking too many questions during board dinners. "We couldn't access this place without the codes," she said flatly. "Mom changed everything before she died, locked it tight. We needed someone who could see the patterns, and they'd chosen me. Not because they trusted me, but because I was the key." "Let me guess," I said, slowly circling the room. "The will? That was your idea." "A soft push," my father admitted. "You needed incentive. She left it all to you, Ethan, whether she meant to or not. We just helped you get curious. Helped. They'd fed me scraps, expecting me to sniff out the treasure and bring it back to them like a loyal hound." I looked around the lab. This wasn't just some secret side project. It was a fortress. Shelves of invention. Stacks of drives. Locked drawers humming quietly like they were keeping secrets of their own. And that wall dozens of prototype designs, patent charts, all signed in my mother's script. Technology years ahead of anything Walker Global had released. "You stole all this," I said, voice sharp now. "Everything this company ever built came from her." "She was part of the company," Victoria said coolly. "It's not stealing when it's in the family. She hid it from you because she knew what you'd do. She was naive," my father interrupted. "Brilliant, yes, but obsessed with being right, with leaving a legacy no one could touch." "She didn't trust you," I shot back. "Or Victoria. That's why she gave the painting to me." My hand moved behind me, fingers brushing the terminal by her workstation. I remembered what her letter said: "If you ever feel cornered, use the Clarity Protocol." It wasn't just a fancy name, it was her failsafe. I input the sequence, quietly, my body blocking the screen from their view. Victoria caught the movement too late. "What are you doing?" she demanded. Something Mum would have wanted. With a final press, the terminal chimed. Lights dimmed. A low pulse rippled through the lab, and then, Clarity Protocol activated. The overhead voice said, "Initiating global transmission. Data distribution commencing." My father lunged. "What have you done?" Too late. Every screen in the lab began flickering emails, blueprints, legal documents, timestamps, digital trails of everything they'd buried. I watched the security feeds flip through outlets: The Verge, Bloomberg, SECUSPATENT, Office, Reuters, dozens of live uploads. I turned to them, breath shaky but steady enough. "You wanted this lab so badly," I said. "Good. Now the world has it too." Victoria's face drained of colour. "You fool," she snapped. "You just blew up everything. Our patents, our stock. The entire board will know the truth," I interrupted. "That this empire was built on stolen genius? That every award you took, every speech you gave was written in my mother's handwriting first." I didn't scream, didn't cry, just stood there and watched the walls do what they were meant to do, reveal. Footsteps echoed overhead. "Security's been notified," the AI voice announced. "Local authorities inbound." My father tried the exit panel. It beeped red. Locked. "Manual override," he barked to Victoria. But she was staring at me, as if seeing me clearly for the first time. "You think this makes you a hero?" she asked. "You're not your mother," I smiled faintly. "No, but I'm the one she trusted. That should tell you something." I backed toward the central server, wrapping my hand around a hard drive tucked inside the main terminal. "This is what integrity looks like," I said. "It's messy. It's complicated, but it's real." Red lights flashed. Police sirens drew closer. Outside the small lab windows, blue and red beams of justice crawled across the horizon like dawn. Victoria stepped toward me again, her voice lower, teeth clenched. "You're ruining us." "No," I said, holding her gaze. "You did that. I'm just pressing send. The moment hung. Then heavy boots thundered down the stairwell. Officers, flashlights, voices raised. Victoria tried to talk her way out of it. My father tried to disappear behind his legacy. But neither could outrun what was already in motion. The files had gone global. Evidence was everywhere. Every corrupt deal, every buried idea, every voice silenced in pursuit of dominance. The walls had recorded everything. I stood still as they were taken away. Didn't smile, didn't flinch, just watched. When it was done, one officer approached me. "You Ethan Walker?" The first nodded. He looked at the lab, still humming around us. "This all yours?" I glanced at my mother's signature on the largest schematic behind me, then nodded again. "Yeah," I said, "now it is." 2 days later, I stood in the lobby of Walker Global, now mine. Well, technically, the board didn't have many options after the broadcast. With the company stock in freefall, investigations on every continent, and half the senior leadership quietly lawyering up, they needed a lifeline. I became that lifeline. The forgotten son, the black sheep, the one with nothing to lose and suddenly everything to gain. I didn't come to gloat. I didn't even bring a speech. I came with proof. The hard drives from the Polaris lab. My mother's blueprints. Her final letter. A trail of brilliance that had been erased, redacted, or filed under someone else's name. I walked into the boardroom, slid the drives across the table and said, "This is the truth. You can fight it or you can fix it. But if you want this company to survive, I'm the only one who can rebuild it." They didn't argue. They voted me in that same afternoon. The next few weeks were a blur: press conferences, legal teams, restructuring. But underneath the chaos was a steady hum of something else. Clarity. The Clarity Protocol hadn't just exposed corruption. It had revealed the soul of the company. And that soul belonged to her. To Eleanor Walker. To my mother. I renamed the company Polaris Innovations. Not out of vanity, but because she deserved more than footnotes and sidebars. She deserved a legacy rooted in truth, not profit. We launched 2 initiatives immediately. The first, a foundation to compensate inventors whose work had been stolen under Walker Global's previous regime. We called it Project Echo, because echoes always return eventually. The second, an incubator for young creators. No NDAs, no corporate poaching, just clean funding and creative freedom. My mother believed in building things that mattered. I wanted to give others that chance. But change wasn't just external. Carlos visited my new office the day we unveiled the name change. He looked older, but lighter somehow. "She would have been proud," he said quietly. "I hope so," I replied. "She left one more thing for you," he added, handing me a small envelope, sealed in wax. "Told me not to give it to you until after it all burned down. Inside was a note, just 1 paragraph, handwritten on thick parchment. Ethan, you were never meant to inherit their world. You were meant to build a better one. Let truth be your foundation. And if you ever feel lost, look to Polaris. Love always, Mom." I framed the letter and hung it beside the painting Evening Echoes now resting behind my desk. And sometimes, when I'm working late, I swear the shapes shift again. Like she's still here, watching, guiding, leaving me another puzzle to solve. Victoria hasn't reached out. Last I heard, she was released on conditional bail, hiding behind statements prepared by a very expensive legal team. My father hasn't spoken a word since the day of the lab. Not publicly, not privately. He knows it's over. His name, once synonymous with power, is now a cautionary tale in every ethics seminar from MIT to Tokyo. I don't hate them. Not anymore. Hate is heavy. And I've carried enough weight. Instead, I put my energy into what matters. Last month, we hosted our first Polaris Summit, a kind of tech fair meets art gallery where independent creators could show their work. We awarded funding to the most promising minds, no strings attached. The winner? A young woman named Sana, barely 21. Quiet voice, brilliant mind. She built a prototype for sustainable energy modulation using biodegradable materials. Said she got the idea after seeing a tree grow through the cracks of her apartment's parking lot. She reminded me of someone. After the ceremony, I handed her the award, a glass trophy shaped like the North Star. As she held it up, the light from the ceiling hit the reflection just right and behind her. In the polished surface of my office wall, I saw evening echoes. The painting shimmered, the shapes danced, and in that moment I didn't see numbers or patterns or pain. I saw continuity. 2 years ago, I thought I was left with nothing but a cruel joke on canvas. Now I know better. That painting wasn't a dismissal, it was a torch, a passing of light from one dreamer to another. A reminder that legacy isn't built in marble lobbies or stock prices. It's built in truth, in compassion, in letting silence become a roar when the time is right. That's what my mother gave me. Not just revenge, not just revelation, but purpose. And the knowledge that when the night feels too dark to navigate, there's always Polaris. Story 2. You never expect betrayal to hit you when you're unconscious and wired to machines. I'm Nate Callahan, 42, and I've been a long-haul trucker for over 2 decades. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. Pays well enough? Or at least it did before my wife, Riley, decided to rob me blind while I was fighting for my life in a hospital room. 3 weeks ago, I was halfway between Des Moines and Denver when the tightness in my chest that I'd been brushing off for months turned into full-on agony. I pulled off at some lonely stretch of road and called 911 myself. Yeah, I'm that guy, stubborn, self-reliant to a fault. Next thing I knew, I was being airlifted to Sioux City, and the ER doc was shouting something like, "We're losing him!" I flatlined twice. Woke up 2 days later with a heart stent, a morphine drip, and a nurse telling me I was lucky to be alive. Didn't feel lucky when I checked my phone. There was just one message from Riley. Not "Are you okay?" Not "When can I come see you?" Just a screenshot of our joint bank account $0.00. Underneath it, "I deserve this. After everything I've done for you." She'd taken everything, $58,900 from our joint savings, $6,300 from my emergency fund, and another $15 I'd stashed for truck maintenance. My heart monitor started beeping fast enough that a nurse came in to check on me. I didn't scream, didn't reply with paragraphs. I just sent her a thumbs up emoji. That's it. The next morning, my doctor told me I needed 6 weeks off the road to rest. No driving, no stress, no surprises. "Someone picking you up tomorrow?" he asked. Yep, I lied. I had no intention of going home. I called my younger brother, Ian. We're not super close. He does contracting work, lives about 40 minutes from Sioux City. Been divorced twice. He knows a thing or two about people who betray you when you least expect it. "You need a place to crash?" he asked. "Yeah, and I need you not to tell Riley I'm alive." That got his attention. "She thinks she knows I was in the hospital. She just doesn't know I'm not coming back." I met Riley 11 years ago at a gas station outside Missoula. She had a busted radiator and no idea how to deal with it. I helped her out. She offered to buy me a coffee as a thank you, and that turned into a road trip romance. We got married the following summer. I was 31. She was 28. Old enough to know better. Young enough to still believe in forever. For a while, We made it work. She didn't love that I was gone 75% of the time, but she liked the things the job gave us, like our house, the new SUV, and her self-care weekends at those fancy lodges in Colorado. The calls got shorter over time. First, we'd talk for an hour every night. Then it became a few texts, made it to Street Louis, leaving early tomorrow. She stopped asking when I'd be home. I should have known something was off, but I trusted her. That's what marriage is, right? Ian let me into his place, offered me the guest room. He gave me a beer I didn't drink and a sandwich I barely touched. She really took all of it, he asked. Cleaned me out. What now? First, rest. Then I take stock. That night I didn't sleep. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, remembering all the red flags I had ignored. Riley hiding her phone. Talking about consolidating accounts. Laughing off questions about where her new perfume came from. She was always one step ahead. But what she didn't know was I'd been 2 ahead of her the whole time. 3 months earlier, I'd refinanced the house when mortgage rates dropped. Riley said she was too swamped to come sign, so I handled it solo. Titles now in my name only. And last year, after my buddy collapsed mid-shift and his girlfriend couldn't legally make decisions for him, I got spooked and drew up a medical power of attorney. My niece, Emma, a second-year law student, helped me do it right. Riley had never even asked about it. Turns out, all those just-in-case moves weren't just smart. They were life-saving. On day 3 at Ian's, I got a text from our neighbour, Doug. Hey man, haven't seen you around. Hope you're okay. Also, some guy's been at your house a lot lately. Just thought you should know. I didn't reply. Just sat with it. Let it sink in. That afternoon, Ian drove me to the main branch of our bank. Not the local one where Riley and I knew everyone. The downtown one, anonymous. We met with a fraud specialist. I showed her Riley's text and my hospital records. I explained that she'd drained our joint accounts while I was unconscious. She stayed professional, but I saw the flicker of rage behind her eyes. We can launch a fraud investigation, but since it's a joint account, proving misconduct will be tricky. I understand, I said. But let's do it anyway. Back at Ian's, I made 3 calls, my dispatcher I needed, medical leave, the credit union where I kept a tiny account under my LLC, a lawyer Ian knew, Blake Pearson. Real estate and family law, no nonsense. I need to know what I can do, I told him. The house, the accounts, everything. We set up a meeting for the next morning. I checked some accounts Riley didn't know about: small investments, bonds, a backup savings account. She hadn't touched them because she didn't know they existed. She never cared about borrowing money. That's how I kept it safe. That night, she finally messaged me again. Where are you? I stopped by the depot. They said, you're not back. I'm getting worried. Then another, we need to talk. I think we both made mistakes. I didn't respond. She'd finally noticed I was gone. And now she wanted to play nice. Not happening. The next day, I met Blake at his office. He looked over my refinancing papers, my bank statements, and the screenshots from Riley. The house is in your name only, he said. And based on this text and your medical documentation, we might be looking at financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, even though we're married, especially because you were incapacitated. That's a big deal. And the money? He frowned. Harder to fight. Joint means joint, but the context helps. We can get it frozen pending investigation. I nodded. Then let's freeze it. Later that day, Riley tried again. Cam, I know you're mad. I didn't mean to take everything. I just panicked. I thought you might not make it. I just stared at the message. She didn't panic. She planned this. She'd been preparing for months, maybe longer. And if she thought she got away with it, Well, she just underestimated the wrong guy. I didn't respond to Riley's texts. Not that day. Not the next. Not even when she started calling from unknown numbers. She thought I was just a trucker with a soft heart and bad boundaries. What she didn't realize, I've spent 20 years on the road reading people fast and quiet. You don't survive this long behind the wheel if you can't see trouble coming in your mirrors. Only this time, the trouble was parked in my own driveway. The lawyer, Blake, moved fast. He got the emergency filing in front of a judge within days. And that was step one, freeze the money. Meanwhile, Emma, my niece, was helping from behind the scenes. She interned at the downtown credit union. And after she heard everything Riley had done, she volunteered without me even asking. You should see if she has any side accounts, Emma said one night over dinner. She's not that smart, I replied. Emma smiled. That's what every guy says right before I show them exactly how smart she was. She was right. Turns out, Riley had opened a personal savings account about 18 months ago. Not at our regular bank. Somewhere else, smaller, local. And she'd been funneling money into it in neat little deposits, just under $10,000 at a time, just under the federal reporting threshold. Classic structuring move, Blake said when he saw the records. And get this, Emma added, the deposits always hit when you were out on long hauls. Like clockwork. That stung. Not because of the money, but because it confirmed everything I didn't want to believe. This wasn't a heat of the moment betrayal. This was a slow bleed, deliberate, calculated. She was preparing for something. Or someone. A week later, my old neighbour Doug texted again. Black SUV parked out front again. Not yours. Same guy from before. My stomach knotted, but I already knew. I didn't want to say it out loud. Didn't want to give it oxygen, but when I finally asked Emma to check if there were any authorized users on that secret account, she came back with a name, Zachary Lott. Doug's neighbour. Riley's friend from work. Guy who randomly started showing up at our block parties 2 summers ago. The one who helped her paint the guest room while I was out in Utah. I'd shaken that man's hand. He looked me in the eye and thanked me for everything I do. I didn't scream, didn't rage, just nodded slowly. Okay, I said. So now I know. Blake leaned forward. Nate, this is more than betrayal. This is full-blown financial fraud. I nodded again. So what do we do? He smiled. Now we build our case. Step 1, document everything. I started going through old messages, emails, bank statements. Took photos of upgrades around the house, like the new shed Zach helped install while I was in Arizona, or the $3,500 landscaping that appeared while I was on the road in June. Improvements paid with my money to increase the value of the house Riley assumed she'd get in the divorce. Only problem? That house was in my name now. She didn't even ask about the paperwork. That same week, Riley's lawyer reached out to Blake. Some woman named Monica Dorsey, a known bulldog in divorce law around here. Blake called me the moment he got the email. She's coming in hot, he said. Wants 50% of the house and all the withdrawn funds labelled as marital property. She's also accusing you of abandonment. Claims you ghosted Riley after your hospitalization. I let out a short laugh. That's rich. She's trying to create a narrative, Blake said. You vanish. She's left to survive. Poor her. So what do we do? Counter it with the truth. And we hit them before they run. He was right to worry. Because a few days later, Emma spotted a red flag. They've started draining that hidden account. Smaller transfers to different accounts. This is classic getaway behaviour. And then Doug texted again. For sale sign just went up at Zach's place. I called Blake immediately. They're prepping to disappear. He filed a court motion that afternoon, emergency injunction to freeze Riley's and Zach's assets, stop any property sales, and legally restrict travel without court permission. The judge set the hearing for Friday. We had 48 hours. Thursday evening, Riley messaged me again. This time it was long. Nate, I panicked, okay? When you were in the hospital, I thought maybe you wouldn't make it. And then I found out you refinanced the house behind my back. I was scared. I didn't know what you were planning. I thought maybe you were hiding things from me. We need to talk. Just you and me. No lawyers. I still love you. I just want to make things right. I didn't reply. Because by now, this wasn't about love. It was about the truth. And the truth was Riley didn't panic, she plotted. And now the walls were closing in. Friday morning, I pulled into the courthouse parking lot early. Just as I parked, I saw Riley and Zach arguing beside his SUV. She was flailing her arms. He looked cold, distant, and then he walked away. I pulled out my phone and hit record. No sound needed. Their body language said it all. Inside, I showed the footage to Blake. Perfect timing, he said. Let's go. The hearing was quiet but tense. Just me, Riley, the two lawyers, and Judge Calloway stoic, serious, sharp. Blake laid it out clearly. Your Honor, while my client was hospitalized and unconscious, his spouse drained their joint account, opened secret financial vehicles, and began transferring assets with an outside party Zachary Lott. He slid the bank records forward, then the photos, then the video. Monica tried to push back. There is no evidence of romantic or financial collusion, really, Blake said. Then why is Mr. Lott listed as an authorized user on Riley's hidden savings account? Why is he moving $10,000 chunks the week before he lists his property? Judge Calloway looked at Riley. Mrs. Callahan, are you planning to leave this jurisdiction? Riley blinked, caught off guard. No, Your Honor, I was just trying to protect myself. By hiding funds in secret accounts. With a third party? She didn't answer. The judge sighed. I'm granting the motion. Effective immediately, all accounts frozen. Property sales blocked. Mrs. Callahan and Mr. Lott are prohibited from leaving the county pending final resolution. Then he turned to me. Mr. Callahan, given your medical condition and the financial deception during your recovery, you are granted exclusive use of the marital home until this matter is resolved. We walked out of that courthouse and didn't say a word. Riley looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under her. Me? I just felt steady, like a man who finally had both feet planted after being dragged for miles. Blake smiled as we hit the parking lot. This was a big step. I nodded. We're not done yet. Because the court froze her playbook, but I was about to flip it and write the ending myself. 3 months after I nearly died in a hospital bed, I stood in the kitchen of the house I bought with 20 years of hard work and no shortcuts. My house now, not ours anymore. The silence wasn't empty, it was clean, honest. Riley had tried to take everything, but all she really did was free me. After the judge froze her accounts and blocked the property sales, things unraveled fast for her and Zach. He ghosted first. One morning, he was there. The next, gone. Pulled his house off the market, shut down his socials, wiped his presence clean. My niece, Emma, tracked his last bank movement. He cashed out $87,000 in 3 separate cashier's checks. Disappeared like he knew what was coming. He left Riley holding the bag. We moved into the divorce proceedings fast after that. Riley's big shot lawyer. Suddenly, a lot quieter in court. Blake laid everything out. The secret savings, the suspicious transfers, the personal upgrades to property in my name. The withdrawal of nearly $80,000 while I was unconscious and intubated. Judge Calloway didn't need much convincing. He called it what it was: exploitation. This wasn't survival, he said. This was strategy. And then he ruled. I kept the house. I kept the truck. I got 80% of what was left in the accounts, including half of her hidden stash. Riley? She got her SUV, her wardrobe, and 20% of the leftovers after legal fees. Oh, and that 400 wunk she'd been trying to hide? Yeah, Blake found that too. And thanks to the marital split clause, I got a piece of it. I never spoke to Riley again after that last court date. Everything went through attorneys. The last I heard, she moved to Minneapolis. No idea if she followed Zach there, no idea if he even wanted her to. And honestly, I didn't care. 6 months after moving back in, I sold the house. Too many ghosts in the walls. Too many memories that felt like watching someone else's life. Bought a smaller place just outside Sioux City. Quiet street. Big windows. Feels like a reset. Emma? She's finishing law school this year. I used part of the settlement to help cover her last semester. If there's one good thing to come out of all this, it's that she's going to walk into that courtroom one day and eat lawyers like Riley's for breakfast. Ian still checks on me every few days. We drink coffee on his porch. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't. The quiet doesn't bother me anymore. I don't drive long haul anymore either. Doctor said it wasn't worth the risk, so I took a dispatch job. Local routes, day hours, home before dinner. It's not the open road, but for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm running. It's steady. And sometimes that's better than freedom. I found our wedding photo last week, stuffed in a box labelled old papers under a pile of truck receipts and hospital records. I didn't tear it up, didn't burn it. I just looked at it, really looked at it, and then put it back in the box. Because, yeah, that was part of my life. But it doesn't get to define me. People ask if I'm bitter. Truth is, no. I'm grateful. Because when Riley drained my accounts, she also emptied out the denial I'd been living in. When she broke the rules, she gave me permission to walk away from a life I'd been trapped in without even realizing it. She thought she was cashing out. But I was cashing in on peace, on a clean start, on knowing I'll never again give my whole life to someone who only wanted a payout. Some lessons you learn the easy way. Others, you learn flat on your back with tubes in your chest. But either way, you learn and you get up and you move forward, because that's what people like me do. We don't quit. We don't rage. We don't burn bridges. We just build better ones. This time, for ourselves. Story 3. My name's Claire. I'm 33, work in tech, and live a pretty comfortable life now, but I didn't get here without putting in serious work. I clawed my way up from a lower middle class upbringing, nailed a full ride scholarship, and built a career from scratch. No silver spoons, no shortcuts. Just a lot of long nights, Excel spreadsheets, and self-doubt I had to quiet with results. My family, let's just say they never liked that I got out. It's not like I'm a millionaire. I just don't live paycheck to paycheck anymore. I own my condo, travel when I feel like it, and until recently sent monthly help to my parents and siblings. Not because they asked, but because I thought that's what family did. I thought wrong. Looking back, I probably should have caught on earlier. My mum always idolized my younger brother, Jason. The dude's 29 and has cycled through more jobs than I have throw pillows. He tries his best, but somehow always ends up needing just a little help. And my sister, Megan, master of the backhanded compliment, always reminding me that money can't buy happiness right before cashing the checks I sent when her car got repossessed. My dad? He's the human version of a background character. Whatever my mum says goes, even when it's blatantly unfair. Despite all that, I kept showing up. Birthdays, holidays, random weekends. I'd cover dinner bills, bring thoughtful gifts, and smile through the passive-aggressive comments. Every time they needed help, emotional, logistical, financial, I showed up. And every single time I told myself, maybe this is the time they see me, appreciate me. Spoiler, that didn't happen. Here's where it all went downhill. It was a quiet December night, just before Christmas. We were having one of those cozy little gatherings at my parents' place, potluck-style dinner, wine, too many casseroles. The usual. At one point, I lifted my glass and said, "I can't wait for the reunion tomorrow. It'll be good to see everyone again." Silence. Then Jason let out this smug chuckle and said, "What reunion?" "You mean the one that happened yesterday?" I blinked. "What?" Megan, swirling her wine like a villain in a soap opera, smirked. "Yeah, it was yesterday. Didn't Mom tell you?" I turned to my mum. She shrugged. "Oh, I must have mixed up the dates." Mixed up the dates. This wasn't forgetting to water a plant. This was a full-blown, coordinated family event. And they left me out, no invite, no call, no text, not even a passive-aggressive Facebook comment. My aunt, who had apparently been enjoying the drama from the sidelines, held up her phone and showed me the pictures. Everyone was there, smiling, arms around each other. Jason, Megan, my parents, cousins, kids' dogs, probably even the family cat, but not me. Jason grinned. Awkward. Megan actually giggled. Oops, our bad. I stood up, walked away from the table. No theatrics, no yelling. I just left. Because in that moment, it hit me. This wasn't an oversight. This was a choice. I grabbed my coat, stepped out into the freezing night, and let the cold bite at my skin while my brain went into overdrive. They didn't forget. They excluded me, deliberately. The first pulled out my phone. Not a single message from any of them. Not a single missed call. Not even a fake "wish you were here" text. I thought about getting in my car and leaving. Vanishing. Cutting them off right then and there. But I didn't. I went back inside. Why? Because I wanted to see what they'd do next. The laughter from the dining room kept going like I hadn't just been emotionally nuked. I hung up my coat, walked back in, and sat down at the table like nothing happened. Megan looked at me. Thought you left. I met her gaze, deadpan. Why would I leave? It's just a silly mistake, right? She smiled that smile people give when they know they're winning. Of course. Jason leaned back in his chair. You're taking this way too seriously. It's not like we did it on purpose. I raised an eyebrow. You had decorations, catering, invitations, group chats. But no one remembered to text me. My mum sighed like I was the problem. Claire, let's not ruin the holidays. It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. That's when something inside me snapped into focus. Not rage, not heartbreak. Clarity. I smiled. You know, I said, twirling my fork, I've been thinking about all the money I send you guys. Now that got their attention. Megan sat up straighter. Mum looked nervous. Even Dad looked away from his wine glass. Jason's tone got sharp. What about it? I set the fork down gently. I've been covering Megan's rent, Mum and Dad's meds, and Jason's lifestyle choices. And yet, somehow, I wasn't important enough to include in the reunion. Jason laughed nervously. Oh, come on. You're not actually mad, are you? I didn't respond. He waved a hand. You've got your fancy job. You don't need us. There it was, the core of it, the resentment. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. You're right. I don't. Megan snapped. Don't be petty. Petty? I said with a soft laugh. Like hosting an entire reunion and hiding it from me? Silence. Jason rolled his eyes. God, you're so dramatic. We forgot. Big deal. Then he said it. The sentence that changed everything. I already bought those new Yeezys with the money you send me. You're not going to cut us off over this, right? It was almost funny. Almost. I set my napkin down, wouldn't I? He blinked. The realization dawning. I didn't wait for their reaction. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and walked toward the door. Mum's voice cracked. Claire, please don't be rash. We're family. I looked at her. Then you should have treated me like it. I opened the door. Wait, Megan said, almost tripping over herself to get up. You're not actually serious, right? I smiled over my shoulder. Enjoy the shoes, Jason. And then I stepped out into the snow. I didn't look back as I pulled out of their driveway. Just turned on my music, let the heater kick in, and drove. It wasn't some dramatic I'm never coming back moment. I was just done. Not in an angry way, more like when you finally hang up on a call that should have ended an hour ago. That kind of done. By the time I got home, my phone was already buzzing. First, it was Megan. Claire, seriously, this is dramatic. Call me. Then Mum, you're being emotional. Let's talk this out. And, of course, Jason. Okay. Point made. But can you still send the money this month? I set my phone on silent and made tea. I wasn't surprised. That's how they operated. Do something awful, pretend it wasn't a big deal, then expect me to keep playing along. But I'd hit my limit, and no amount of sweet talking or emotional guilt bombs were going to change that. I curled up on the couch and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, not joy. Not relief, just quiet. Like my brain finally stopped buzzing from trying to earn love that was never unconditional to begin with. By morning, my phone looked like a battlefield. Texts, missed calls, voice messages I didn't bother to open. The tone was changing. Jason, especially. At first it was sarcastic. Wow, cutting us off over one reunion. Lame. Then it got panicky. Claire, I need that money. Seriously, I already spent it. Then desperate. If you don't send it today, I'm screwed. They're going to charge my card. I scrolled past it, sipping my coffee. It wasn't that I wanted to see him fall. I just didn't want to be the net anymore when he jumped without thinking. Because he always thought I'd be there to catch him. Not this time. Then came the message that almost made me laugh. I got a TV and a PS5 on your card budget. If I return them now, I'll get hit with restocking fees. A restocking fee. Like that was the tragedy here. My mum's texts started piling up too. Claire, help your brother. This is serious. You're punishing all of us for a misunderstanding. Family doesn't give up on each other. But wasn't that exactly what they'd done? Not just with the reunion, but for years. They gave up on seeing me as anything but a wallet with legs. Even Megan chimed in, trying to play peacemaker. Okay, it was messed up, but you're blowing it out of proportion. Just send the money and talk it out later. I didn't respond. Eventually, Jason cracked and called. I let it ring. He called again. And again, on the fourth try, I answered. He didn't waste a second. Claire, you've got to help me. I'm in serious trouble here. I didn't even say hello. Didn't take long for the we're family speech to come back around, huh? Come on, he groaned. Are you seriously going to let me crash and burn over this? Over this, I repeated. You mean the part where all of you deliberately excluded me from a family event and laughed in my face when I found out that wasn't me, he argued, like that mattered. That was Mum's thing. I didn't know the date was wrong, Jason, you were in the pictures. You had time to show up, pose, party, and post, but not once did it occur to you to check why your own sister wasn't there? Silence. I didn't think you'd care, he finally said. You're always so busy. I let that hang there. You mean the job that funds your impulse buys. Okay, fine, he snapped. I messed up, but you have the money. You could make this go away right now. Yeah, I could, I said calmly. But I won't. Seriously, he whispered. You're really going to do this to me? No, I said. You did this to you. Another pause. I could hear him breathing hard, trying to keep himself together. They're going to charge everything tonight, he said. I'll overdraft. Then call your bank, I said. Cancel the card, return the items, figure it out like a grown adult. He scoffed. Wow, you're really not going to lift a finger. I've lifted plenty, I said. Years of fingers. It's your turn. And I hung up. He called back immediately. I ignored it. I felt a little sick to my stomach. Not because I doubted myself, but because I hated that it had come to this. I didn't want to be cold. I wanted to be loved. But I'd been taught again and again that in this family, love came with a bill, and I'd stopped paying. Later that night, Megan texted, "What did you say to him? He's freaking out." Then Mom, Claire, "This is cruel. He's your brother." And finally, Jason, again, "You'll regret this." I smiled. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally felt like I was done playing the fool. 2 days passed. I didn't hear anything. My inbox was blessedly quiet. Then Mum broke the silence. "He's coming to see you," I sighed. About an hour later, my doorbell rang. I didn't have to check the peephole. I already knew. Jason looked like hell. Dark circles, messy hair, same hoodie from 3 days ago. No cocky smirk. Just a guy who finally realized the ground beneath him wasn't solid. "We need to talk," he said. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. He stood awkwardly on the step. "I didn't think you'd really do it." "I told you I would." "I thought you were bluffing," he muttered. "That's kind of the problem, isn't it?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I get it. We screwed up. But I'm here, okay? I'm trying." "Are you trying to make things right?" I asked. "Or just trying to get out of the consequences?" He didn't answer. I stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind me. I spent years thinking that if I just kept helping, kept showing up, you'd all eventually see me. You didn't. You only saw what I could give. "That's not true," he mumbled. "It is," I said. "And you know it." His eyes dropped to the ground. I messed up. "Yeah," I said. "You did. What do you want me to do?" he asked. "Beg." I shook my head. "I want you to grow up." He laughed bitterly. "Easier said than done. Maybe," I replied. "But it's not my job anymore." There was a long pause. Then he snapped. "You think you're better than us?" I didn't flinch. "No. I just stopped pretending you're better than me." He stared at me for a moment, like he didn't know who I was anymore. "Maybe he didn't. You're making a mistake," he said quietly. "No," I said. I made a lot of those, but this is the first thing I've done right in a long time. He turned and walked back to his car. I watched him drive away. No part of me wanted to chase after him. I wasn't angry. I wasn't relieved. I just felt finished. After Jason left, the house felt still. Not the uncomfortable kind of quiet you get after a fight. This was a peaceful silence. Like something heavy had finally been set down after years of carrying it without even realizing the weight. I made dinner, watched some show I didn't care about, slept through the night without waking up to check emails or transfer money at some panicked family request. It had taken years for me to reach this point, and it was strange how simple it all felt once I did. The next morning I went for a walk. The air was crisp, sky cloudy with that soft grey that makes you breathe a little deeper. I didn't bring my phone, didn't feel the need. When I got back, I had voicemails waiting. One from Mum. Claire, we need to talk. Please don't shut us out. Another from Megan. You're really not going to help him. This is family. You don't walk away from family. But that's the thing, they'd walked away from me a long time ago. First slowly, then all at once. The reunion was just the last nail. The moment they stopped pretending. I just finally stopped pretending too. I didn't respond. Not to guilt, not to shame, not to the idea that being born into a group of people meant I owed them endless patience while they offered none. A few days later, I got an email from Jason, no subject line, just 2 paragraphs that tried to sound apologetic but read more like a plea for money disguised as growth. I get it now. I do. I didn't appreciate you. I took advantage. I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix things. I just need a little help to get back on track. Just enough to clear the debt. I swear I'll pay you back. I stared at the screen for a while. He probably thought he'd hit the right note, that some combination of apology and financial desperation would pull the right heartstring. But the truth is, I wasn't angry anymore, just done. It's hard to explain what that feels like until you've been there. You don't hate them, you don't wish them harm. You just reach a point where you stop setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. I didn't reply to the email, just archived it. I spent the rest of the week doing things that brought me back to myself. I deep cleaned the house, did yoga for the first time in months, cooked a slow meal for one, and actually tasted it. No buzz of tension in the back of my mind, no waiting for the next crisis text, just space. When the weekend hit, I got another call, this time from my dad. He rarely called, and when he did, it was usually to parrot whatever my mum told him to say. This time wasn't different. Claire, I don't know what's going on, but your mother's upset. Jason says he's in a bad place. Can you at least talk to them? I didn't answer right away. Then I said, why now? What do you mean? I sighed. Why is it that nobody calls unless something's wrong? Unless someone needs something from me? He was quiet. I've sent money for years, covered bills, picked up checks, kept quiet while you all pretended I didn't matter. And it took a reunion you all purposely hid from me to finally show me what's always been true. I was never really part of this family. Just the support beam. That's not true, he said softly. It is, I replied, but it's okay. I don't need it to be different anymore. I'm just moving on. He didn't argue, just let out a breath and said, I hope you find peace, Claire. I already did, I told him. That's why I'm not coming back. We hung up. That was the last real conversation I had with any of them. The messages tapered off eventually. Guilt turned to silence. Entitlement turned into awkward distance. And you know what? That silence, it was gold. No more late night Venmo requests. No more fake holiday cheer. No more walking into rooms where I felt like a guest at my own table. Instead, I started building something else. Something that felt like home. I reconnected with friends I'd pushed aside during all the family emergencies. Started volunteering at a local coding camp for girls, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had the emotional bandwidth for. I even started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I deserved to untangle the threads that tied worth to usefulness. One session, my therapist asked, what would you say to them now if they were sitting in front of you? And without hesitation, I said, nothing. I just listen to how quiet it is without them. She nodded. Didn't even write anything down. That's when I knew she got it. Sometimes healing doesn't look like forgiveness. It looks like peace, like distance, like not picking up the phone. It looks like cooking for one and loving it. It looks like knowing your own voice in a room that used to drown you out. It looks like freedom. About a month after it all happened, I got one last text. From Jason. Hey, just wanted to say thanks. You not bailing me out? It forced me to figure some things out. I'm picking up extra shifts. Selling some stuff. I'll be fine. No guilt, no request. Just a message. I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because I didn't owe him closure. I already had mine. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is choose yourself. And I did. I chose myself. And finally, that was enough.